things are being left behind. So many unknowns are in the future, making us anxious and uncertain. This makes the present uncomfortable and unsettling. Breathe, beloveds. Remember that life is change and change is life. Breathe. Remember that you have weathered storms before and have survived and thrived and found your way. Breathe. Remember that you are not alone on this journey, that you are held by this community and by the love that holds all that is. Breathe. Let the path unfold before you. This is how change works. Evolution works, not in huge sweeping narratives told by historians, but in tiny shifts within individual, capacious hearts. Just keep moving. Trust the journey. Trust yourself. Transform.
I got my ticket for the long way round. 2 bottles of whiskey for the way.
And I sure would like some sweet company. And I'm leaving tomorrow. What do you say?
When I'm gone,
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my hair. You're gonna miss me everywhere. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. When I'm gone, when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk.
you're gonna miss me by my taco.
You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. I got my ticket for the long way round, the one with the prettiest of views. It's got mountains, it's got rivers, it's got sights to give you shivers, but it sure would be prettier with you.
When I'm gone,
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. When I'm gone, when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my hair.
you're gonna miss me everywhere. Oh,
You're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
when I'm gone, when I'm gone.
You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
I set out on Tuesday, August 11th, very, very early in the morning. The light had that beautiful dawn and dusk quality we get on the Palouse, the one I love so very much. It bathed the beloved hills of the place we call home and made them look luminous, warm, and soft. I stopped at one of my favorite spots, Phillips Farm Park, on my way out of town. And I spun in a circle, taking mental pictures of the landscape and the few remaining wildflowers, tucking those images away for later when the inevitable homesickness hits. The familiar path walked so many times, unfurled beneath my feet. I was the only human there, but it wasn't silent. There were birds calling, and the wind made the grass and the trees rustle. I spoke out loud. Nobody was there to laugh at me. Goodbye for now. And I did it because I know that saying goodbye is all about saying thank you. So I began to catalog all of the things I'm most grateful for. my health, my family, and this community of spectacularly wise and wonderful humans that does me the profound honor of letting me serve as their minister, and who open-heartedly gave me not just permission, but blessings to work remotely for a time in order to support my sister after the birth of her baby. I returned to my car, which was fully loaded with everything I'd need for the journey and everything I'd need for an indefinite stay in Vermont that might be over in a couple weeks or might stretch into a couple of months. I love packing and planning, thinking through what I'll need, making sure it's organized in such a way that when I need something, I can get to it. The packing for this trip felt a little more rushed than I would have liked, and yet the lessons that I learned packing for my sabbatical stood me in good stead, and I was pretty sure I hadn't forgotten anything too important. More, there was enough space that I was able to include a few extras: my guitar, my yoga mat, and my backpacking equipment. While I drove, I listened to Wild by Cheryl Strayed. It's an account of her experience hiking the PCT, the Pacific Coast Trail. At the beginning of her journey, her pack, which she named Monster, was so overloaded that she couldn't even lift it onto her back. She had to sit and wriggle into it and then awkwardly roll over to her hands and knees and push to her feet and walk hunched over. A few days into her hike, though, a fellow, more experienced backpacker helped her go through her pack and winnow it down, getting clear about what she truly needed. In order to do what she wanted to do, she had to leave quite a lot behind, most of it in a free box where hikers swap gear. The way this service is going to flow, I'll share a few reflections, such as those I just offered, and then we'll put on some of Emily's traveling music along with some footage from the trip. And we'll leave you with some questions to hold as you bring to mind the transitions or changes that you're facing in your own life, the journey that you're on, even as you shelter in place and refrain from physically going much of anywhere. Each of these questions are yours to pick up or leave behind. Choose the one that resonates for you or find a question that fits better. Here are your first set of questions to hold. How can I ground my journey in gratitude? What do I need to bring? And what do I want to bring? What do I need to leave behind? Part 2, Unmoored. William Bridges' work on transitions has been an incredibly useful frame for understanding change in my life. Bridges says all of the major shifts in our life follow a predictable pattern. First, we let go of what was, and then we enter the uncomfortable, unmoored, disorienting place of the neutral zone, before eventually settling into the reality, the new reality that is our destination. Of course, this sounds far more linear than it typically is. Real life transitions involve a certain amount of zigging and zagging, from grief for what was, to excitement around what might be, to discomfort with the challenges of change itself, round and round, back and forth, until it eventually calms down and we find ourselves acclimated to a new normal. As I made my way through Montana, I found myself wondering what it would be like here in Vermont. Would I be able to balance work and supporting my sisters and still have a little bit of time to take care of myself? What on earth was I getting myself into? Living in someone else's house, maybe for months, and helping to care not just for a newborn, but for the two not quite one-year-old twins and my 6-year-old niece as well. When my own children were young, I found it impossible to balance caring for them and serving a church. So I stepped away from ministry for a while and got on the mommy track, keeping just the tiniest of hands in. Still, my body remembers preaching a sermon with a baby on one hip, as well as doing pastoral care by phone with an infant in a sling while chasing a toddler around a playground. My own kids are grown now, though, and it's been a long time. My routines for balancing work and family life, my rhythms, are entirely different now, and they already were upset by the realities of quarantine. I've had to find new ways of doing my job and caring for myself in the past few months, and I was just starting to get to the point where I felt okay about it all. And here I was, driving across the country to a new unknown. I knew it was the right thing to do, and yet I wondered if I was completely nuts to do it. I thought about my hammock on the back porch of my house in Moscow, the place where I've been retreating to read and think and dream. I thought about my favorite familiar hikes and the backpacking trip I just completed, my first in nearly 30 years. I like my life in Moscow. Heck, I love my life, quarantine and all. Most of all, I love my community. And I found tears rising in my eyes thinking about leaving so much goodness behind. So I let it rise. I breathed and I cried. And I tried to let myself feel it all, the grief, the anxiety, the dread. I mean, I love babies, but I have not forgotten how rough it can be to love them 24/7. About halfway through Montana, I saw a sign for the headwaters of the Missouri, so I pulled off the highway. The first thing I saw there was a sign describing the ordeal of a member of Lewis and Clark's party who had been chased from a native tribal settlement and had to run 6 miles across the prairie, stark naked, before finding a place to hide. I thought about the courage it must have taken for those explorers to venture into the unknown. Found myself remembering the story of the guys who literally rode a rubber air mattress down the Black Canyon of the Gunnison in Colorado. The rigors of their adventures restored a sense of perspective. I might get tired, but it was unlikely that I would be physically harmed by my adventures. No running naked through the countryside, no riding an air mattress down a wild, untamed river. I found a short nature trail that led to the confluence of 3 rivers, the Madison, the Jefferson, and the Gallatin, which flow together there to become the Missouri. The grass in the prairie was full of crickets, so each step I took dislodged a whole cloud of them, whirring and buzzing. I thought about the service that we did on the Mary Oliver poem with the grasshopper. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I thought about the photo Margaret Dibble sent just a few days ago, verifying that grasshoppers will indeed eat sugar out of your hand. When I got to the confluence, I looked at the water swirl and mix and spin before settling into a steady flow. There was a ring buoy by the shore, and I thought about what it would be like to fall into the water there, the rip currents, the rocks. I remembered my mom, who had been a lifeguard, telling me when I first went swimming in a river that if I got caught, I needed to go with the current, protect my head, keep my feet downstream. And then when I can surface, to swim diagonally to the shore rather than fighting the current. And I also remembered I am a very strong swimmer. I felt a growing sense of acceptance. Yes, things would be turbulent. It would be nuts, chaotic, topsy-turvy. It might take me a while to adjust to the new rhythms of being with my sisters and their babies. And just about when I figured it out, it would probably be time to leave and come back home. What I choose to do with my one wild and precious life is to love ever more courageously and generously. How could I do anything other than this strange and scary thing I was doing? I returned to my car and continued on my way. Your second set of questions to choose or leave behind. What am I grieving, missing, or letting go of? How can I be present to the discomfort of the neutral zone? What unfamiliar territory am I being invited to explore? Part 3, enjoying the journey. The rhythm of my travel was pretty intense. I wanted to minimize exposure and travel as fast and as far as I could without unduly taxing my body, which hates staying in the same position for too long. So I would drive and then stop, go for a quick hike or jog, do some stretches, carefully avoid all of the other humans, and then get back behind the wheel. I stopped at Theodore Roosevelt National Park, and the sight of buffalo there, including their babies, in their native natural habitat, brought me to tears. There was something just so right seeing them there, something that spoke of resilience and resurrection and the persistence of life in the face of waste and destruction. I promised myself that I'd come back for a longer visit sometime soon. I felt drawn to water, so I stopped at a lot of different rivers and creeks and waterfalls and lakes that weren't too far from the highway. I skipped the Little Bighorn, making a note that I would come back sometime, and I managed to resist the temptation to detour to Yellowstone, which is one of my favorite places. I found myself noting the place names of cities and towns where I know the UU ministers, and I felt growing in me a sense of a web of good people that extended across the country like a safety net. There were so many places I could have stopped and visited a friend, had a meal and a glass of wine. I mean, I didn't because COVID. Only a few of them even knew I was traveling through, but I felt them with me, there for me, nevertheless. I also had several friends who'd offered to talk to me on the phone if I got lonely or bored or sleepy. I took a few of them up on it. At one point, as I was talking to my friend Dana, I came up over a rise and saw a thunderstorm off in the distance. It was so incredibly beautiful that I lost my train of thought and sat there dumbstruck. Dana was worried that she'd lost the call, that I'd gotten into an accident, but then she laughed and laughed with delight when I explained what had happened. And so it went. I listened to music or audiobooks. I watched the miles roll by, and I savored every beautiful shift in the land and the sky. I listened to the still small voice when it said, "Stop here," or "Not there, not this time." And I felt my body and spirit continue to settle and then expand. I felt at one with the natural world, at one with that network of colleagues and friends, at one with all that is. It was like the edges of my car fell away in my mind, and I found myself able to see right past all those dead bugs on my windshield. Worries fell away, memories fell away, thoughts of home fell away, as did the thoughts of my destination. Everything was the journey, and I was completely and wonderfully immersed in it, every cell in my body awake and alive. Your next set of questions to choose from. How can I cultivate a spirit of adventure and curiosity? Where am I finding unexpected moments of joy and beauty? What are my strategies for embracing change?
I hope you like it.
Part 4, arriving. On the last day of my journey, I was too excited to make more than the very briefest of stops. The landscape felt increasingly familiar as Pennsylvania gave way to upstate New York and then finally Vermont. The green hills, the rocky outcroppings, so similar to New Hampshire where I was born and raised. For those of you who aren't New Englanders, Vermont and New Hampshire are two roughly triangular states with squared corners nestled next to one another with the Connecticut River as the border in between. They're similar enough to the shape of Idaho that I sometimes do a double take when I see one of those Idaho bumper stickers. New Hampshire is broader to the south and narrower to the north. Vermont is the opposite, and we natives argue about which state is right side up and which one is upside down. I'd been very disciplined about not looking at my phone, not checking emails or texts during the day. But on this last leg, I couldn't help but keep my sister apprised of my progress. I got to their house right at dinner time. I refused to hug them until I'd showered and changed my clothes. My biggest fear in this whole venture was that I might bring COVID with me. But then, with my hair still wet, I hugged my sister and her wife, and it was the absolute best. The babies took just a little while to acclimate to me in 3 dimensions instead of 2, but it didn't take that long. And soon they were climbing all over me, giving me slobbery kisses and trying out different sounds to try to approximate Auntie Elizabeth. After the babies went to bed, the grown-ups stayed up way too late, catching up, chatting, and strategizing. I'm surprised by how easily I've been folded into this family and how quickly I've settled into their rhythms. I don't have words to express how much I love them, how happy I am to be here, nor do I have words to express how incredibly grateful I am to all of you for allowing me to work remotely for these precious weeks or months, however long it winds up being. I know this too. I'm not the same person who set out on the morning of August 11th. And I won't be the same person when I return home, because we're never the same. From day to day, we grow, we change, we evolve. The only constant in life is change. Your last set of questions to hold. What new pattern or rhythm is emerging? Can I feel at home in the present moment? What love is waiting to welcome me?
One more time.
Always something old is falling away. Something is unsettled and uncomfortable and uncertain. Always something new is on its way. This is what it means to be human. This is what it means to be alive. When my sister's new baby arrives, she'll be welcomed with open hearts by a team of smart, strong, powerful women, one of whom drove a very long way to be with her. She'll be wrapped in a quilt, sewn by our own PPQ, more strong, smart, powerful women who love this new baby just because they love and are loved by her Auntie Elizabeth. It is all so rich, so blessed, so precious, this wild and precious life. Trust the journey, beloveds, and let the path unfold in front of you. And know that you are surrounded by such good and faithful companions. Love the journey, love life, even stuck in your house under quarantine. And know that I love you. So be it, and so may it be. Here's our song benediction. There is a love.